Beware Romulans bearing gifts.
Hi, this is Eric.
This is Carl.
This is Caleb.
And this is Sean.
And welcome back to this Romulans Bearing Gifts, episode 67, and a special one, not only because we have Caleb and Carl together again, but for the first time on the podcast, we have Sean, who you may know from many things, my own pods, but also TARDIS Tavern back in the days, the Columbo Confab, the
Cabot Cove.
Confab.
You are correct.
Best Picture Pod Show.
Podcast.
Shit we watch on Netflix.
Pod Show podcast. Sean.
Doctor Who Book Club.
There you go. Oh, wow.
Oh,
Classic Horror Cast.
Doctor Who Book
That's a
Club.
bunch of shit. I just realized, do I have a life?
Doctor Who gives an F.
And then obviously his podcast, he appears far too often.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
But this is my first Star Trek podcast, and it's an honor. I don't know who else I'd rather do it with.
Yeah, Sean has been clamoring for years to get on this Star Trek show.
There you go.
I told him I can't let you on. You're such a sycophant for this franchise and this IP.
We'll talk about it.
I keep turning away the letters, putting them in the shredder every time he sends in a request.
Yeah, I'm like that guy on Trekkies that sends like travel brochures to the producers. Anybody remember this? No? Okay.
Look at that. You even seen Trekkies.
I have it on DVD. I saw that movie when it first came out, when Phantom Menace came out the same time. Me and my friend were the only people in the theater watching that movie.
And that's funny because you're not even a Star Wars nerd either.
No, I just really wanted to. I just liked because we had been to the first Chicago TARDIS, so we had a feel of what fandom was like. And I kind of got the feeling that Trek fandom was probably more intense than Doctor Who fandom. I think that's still the case. So we wanted to see this movie, and we were not disappointed. Whereas a little bit later, I saw The Phantom Menace, and the exact opposite was it.
There you go.
So, yeah, it is a good movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah, and I know back in the day, Sean, that you were a big watcher of TNG.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have much interest in this new Star Trek when it came out? All this new stuff?
I don't remember how I got into The Next Generation. I had never seen an episode of the original show, and I watched The Next Generation on what channel was it? Was it Fox? Was it? It was.
It may have been different markets. It was CBS in my local area.
Wait. Are we talking about Next Generation?
Yes.
Wasn't it UPN back then?
You are right. That is correct.
UPN didn't exist until Voyager.
What? Are you sure?
Because Voyager, when it premiered, kicked off the network.
Well, are you sure? Then wasn't there before that trying to be UPN though?
Yeah, you're right. It's something else, and I can't remember what it was. You're absolutely right. It was on the what do you call it? The bandwidth on the old timey TVs.
UHF.
Yeah,
It was on the UHF bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
In my market, it was on the VHF.
Really?
Bandwidth.
All right.
And I think it was in Chicago. It was on Sunday nights, and I think it may have clashed with X-Files, but I may be wrong there. But I watched a couple episodes. I'm like, well, this is kind of cool. And Columbia House had this thing where you pay $30 freaking a month, and each month they'd send you a VHS tape that had 2 episodes on it.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
I had the whole damn thing, and they were very handsome. They were very cool. They came in.
Didn't it make a picture of the Enterprise, the painting, when you put all the spines together?
Yes, they did. When you put them all together, the spines made a picture of the Enterprise.
Oh, for purchase. I thought you meant they were sending you rental ones in the mail. I was okay.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, I remember.
This is Columbia House, yeah. And when I moved from Chicago, I sold them all for about $300.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. I think I sold it for $800.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was $800 to somebody online. Yeah.
Yeah, but to be fair, you probably had $2.5 grand like put into that.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
And I know it wasn't. Well, what can you do? And I remember when I stopped watching that, when I saw them all, I went to Deep Space Nine, and then because that was the logical next one, and then I just couldn't get it. I just didn't get
Yeah.
into it.
Rough early years.
No, that's too bad because the first 3 years are somewhat forgettable depending on who you ask, but season 4 onward,
Oh,
it takes Trek to the next level of storytelling.
This is true.
And to this day, I just regret, and I know it's at my fingertips right now because it's 2023. I regret never seeing a single episode of the original series. I know of certain episodes, I've heard but I don't know why. I know the characters, I've seen the movies. I like the movies, but I don't know why. I never got around to it. I think I was waiting for them all to appear on DVD or something. Just never got around to buying it. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. Or perhaps you were waiting for this podcast, even though you didn't know it existed.
Oh,
Because now you're definitely we'll open that flood for you.
I definitely know. Like, we're gonna have to definitely ask Sean back when we do some random TOS episodes in the future.
There you go.
When I first started watching the original series Star Trek before Next Generation came out, I used to watch it to make fun of it. There was weird acting, the effects were miserable. I just used to watch it to make fun of it. And then one day I got it. Just as I was watching the episode, it just all kind of clicked to me. And I really got an appreciation for with the very limited resources that they had and everything that they were trying to accomplish. You going back to watch it now, they've got remastered versions. You don't even have to suffer through the extremely limited special effects that we had to watch with the original series that came out. I think it'll be a more positive experience for you.
I don't mind the bad special effects. Remember, I have like every Doctor Who on DVD. So
Well, that's true.
I mean, I think that might be a little worse, sort of, but I get it, and I understand that it is remastered and probably but someday. But there are problems that I have with it that aren't fair. And when I was watching this, and I don't want this to be the Sean looks back at Star Trek episode, but there were things like, oh, he's in this. Oh my God, can't we put this to bed already? But we'll get there.
Oh no, you sound like me back in season 1 of this series here.
Maybe.
I'm curious about this.
Did you watch the first season of Strange New Worlds?
No, except for when we started this call, I had the first episode on mute, watching it with the subtitles on. That's it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure Sean hasn't watched anything like on the Paramount Plus side of things.
RuPaul's All Stars Drag Race. That's it.
Well, yeah, there's that.
Oh, this is definitely
And I'm sure you're sad that the drag, I can't remember the name of the Queen show that got canceled along with Prodigy recently.
I don't know what that is.
On Paramount Plus, there was a spinoff to the RuPaul show. And I guess it had like a season, the spinoff, but it just got announced as being canceled. That and the Grease series and Prodigy and another show.
Oh.
It was a Grease prequel.
By the way, that Grease sequel, I gave it a shot, and the story was okay, but the music was god awful. I couldn't believe that they just shot themselves in the foot by just terrible music.
The guy that wrote that, don't ask me his name, one of the guys that wrote that went to my high school. So it was like a big deal in my high school because it was about our high school. So like every 4th year they would put on Grease the musical. So I'm sick of it. I didn't even like the movie. I don't want anything to do with it. I can't stand John Travolta.
Hey, come on.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant like the new one. You mean the original Grease was someone from?
Yeah, the musical.
Oh, that's cool.
He went to my high school. Yeah.
I was like that.
Huh.
I was like Grease.
What happened to the Danny Zuko I met last summer?
No, don't.
There you go. He's great.
No.
Well, I've been a rockin' and a rollin'.
There you go. He's walking back and forth, doing his little "I'm so cool" routine. Come on, that stuff's golden. But is this episode golden? Eric, take it away.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me. It's been this long, having Sean. I know he's not keen on Star Trek in general, but I thought after I saw this episode a week ago that maybe this would be an okay entry point to see what he thinks, and of course I just like to just get his opinion. So that's kind of how this all happened today. Oh boy, oh boy.
And just wait, I'm gonna be breaking out my Steve routine throughout. Oh, Sean is a lawyer, so just wait.
Okay, we don't like to mention that too often. Okay.
So this is season 2, episode 2, Ad Astra per Aspera. A nice Latin title. I was expecting Brad Pitt to show his face at some point, but
Wait, really quick question before I go on. Did anybody else look up to see what that meant?
I did. Before I even clicked on the episode, I looked it up. Yeah.
I did not look it up until later. So I
Okay.
didn't. Yeah, not in advance.
I got To the Stars, and then Aspera. All I could find was that it's an IBM software program.
Yeah, because I remember looking up.
They explained it in the episode, though.
Seeing as it means through hardship, that seems about right. So that's probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I remembered because me and Isaac have been long planning to do an episode on Ad Astra. Many years that's been in the making, and so I'd looked up what that meant years ago. And so I was like, what's that second part mean? So that's why I was curious.
All right. So anyone would do the official definition? Want to tell the audience?
It's like to the stars through difficulty is what the original one is, but they say to the stars through hardship in this episode.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, even in a very terrestrial sense, like that motto, like there's a lot of truth in that, I think. Now, of course, those of us who've been keeping up with the new Star Trek stuff, we all know that Strange New Worlds is primarily episodic, but there's still a through line at the same time with the characters evolving through certain situations. So I don't know if it mattered to you, too much or not, Sean, to know that the character Una, we had learned about her background like way earlier in season 1, that she had this secret, and then it was kind of like a little bit of a cliffhanger in the season finale of season 1, where all of a sudden they just came to arrest her because somehow her secret had become known and Starfleet just arrested her. And then it's last week's episode, which was kind of in between times, and now we're like dealing with the matter at hand. So some of us were looking forward to seeing how this was going to turn out, because we already knew that Illyrians and modified type humans, genetically modified, it's a very outlawed thing in the Star Trek universe. That's a known thing, very well known amongst fans. And so for Una to be incarcerated over this, and to also know, if you're a long-term fan, that she's still going to be in Starfleet at a later point in Star Trek chronology. So then you had to rack your brain, how are they going to get out of this situation? And this episode addresses that. So here we are.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, yeah, I think it's a little bit interesting that they wrap up the two major kind of cliffhangers at the end of that last season. The whole La'an leaving Starfleet and then Una being arrested. They wrap both those up pretty quick. I was kind of expecting them to maybe bleed more into the series, how that stuff's going to play out. But maybe I don't mind. I do like the episodic element of this show. So
yeah. So Sean, since you're just jumping in cold turkey into this series at this point, did you feel like you had a handicap just jumping in uninitiated, or was it like, nah, but you did well enough, all things considered?
I did well enough. It's okay.
Yeah.
They did a really good job of doing sort of a recap without showing an actual recap at the beginning, like last week on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Also, I was very pleased to see that you could tell who each member of the crew was based on the color of their uniform. If you had any knowledge of the original series and the Next Generation, like, oh, she's obviously security. He's the doctor. She's the engineer. She's the communications officer. Well, it helps that she's sitting in the same place that Nichelle Nichols sat, and she's got that green thing in her ear. I was pleased with that. And that's the sort of uniformity, I think, that makes the Star Trek shows really popular among sci-fi fans is the uniformity, because if they've got a show that they love, nothing will upset them more than something that doesn't fit within their idea of like the continuity of the show.
Yes, see Star Trek Discovery for all that kind of rage.
I think from what I know, like I said, I haven't seen it all, but I think that Star Trek is very good with continuity. I can't speak for the books and all that, or for a lot of it and all that, but yeah, they have a writer's Bible. I think they may or may not, but it's
Oh no, yes, they do.
Yeah, and I'll just comment on the uniform thing. Yeah, one of the things I always loved about Star Trek growing up is it had this kind of comfort element to the format and the familiarity of everything.
Mhm.
And the uniforms is one of that. Yeah, it always just sets me immediately in the Star Trek world with all the different color classifications. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just real quick on the uniform. It's such an interesting invention, the color coding, and I know it. Oh yeah, it goes back to the whole reason they did it on TOS was because it was one of the first wave of color series in the United States, and so they actually chose originally uh, blue, red, and green because they wanted to represent the three colors on early color televisions. And so I get that's the origin, but it's just an interesting choice since it's not something that exists in such an obvious way, like in the real life U.S. military.
Yeah.
Not to that extent.
I also found very pleasant and reassuring the fact this, of course, is a prequel to the original series, right?
Yes.
And I know the whole history of Christopher Pike, and he was the captain of the Enterprise in the pilot episode. I really liked that they kept it minimal when it came to the set design. I don't go to Star Trek to see the movies, for instance, because I haven't seen a lot of it. Because you're not going to see this on the Next Generation. There is nothing really extravagant about the production design, at least for the earlier shows, and thank God for this as well. They know that they're a prequel. They're not going to go overboard. Maybe they will if it's like a jungle scene or a city scene or something like that. But I found that reassuring as well. I didn't find myself looking at the scenery and being distracted by a lot of the dialogue. I know that's a minor point, but I just have to say it. Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't the Star Wars prequels where it's just like
Yeah.
feels completely incongruous with what the other series was.
Oh, I want to tell. I'm sorry. This is I'm so sorry, Carl. I'm classic with bunny trails, but Tom's niece is here right now. She's 14 years old. She's Thai. I asked her what her favorite movie was, and she said, "Everybody, gird your loins. Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith." And I said, "Pull the car over, push her out."
Oh, come on.
I think she's somewhere in Georgetown right now.
Is that why the Amber Alert just went off on my phone?
Oh no! Hey, that's still Eric's favorite movie. Don't mention that around him.
It's not my favorite movie, but it is.
You love it.
It's the best of the prequels. That's.
I didn't mean for this to turn into a whole thing. I know that can create a debate, especially with present company.
Yes, let's get away from it quick.
Yeah, don't say anything. Otherwise, I don't want to have to yell out Avatar, and then he has to talk about it.
I just watched that this weekend. That was glorious.
Oh, come on, not again. 40th viewing this year.
Carl, you were going to say something.
I was not going to say anything. I had nothing to say. I am laying low. No, I was just going to point out, costume-wise or uniform-wise, it was also strongly reminiscent of the 60s. That bold color palette of that era. It's, the color TVs at the time, but throughout all of the series that they've had, mostly, that respectful tip of the hat to the boldness of the 60s in terms of the palette was also a cool thing. So yeah, I like the outfits and they've done their best with consistency. We're not going to get into it now, but there have been some modern hit and misses in terms of how closely they maintained that the look of the era or the conceptual consistency. But they've gotten back to it. Strange New World, so it's good that you caught that.
I do have one question though. There's one crew member I wasn't sure what she did. It's the pretty lady, the blonde lady in white.
Eric.
Why me?
Eric.
Uh,
He is an expert on everything she does, is why I pass it to Eric.
well, let's see. She's Australian, currently 29, a Virgo.
Oh, come on, that's not.
No, Eric. I mean on the show.
If we would have let him keep going, he would have listed off all the birthmarks and blemishes and.
Jeez.
Left shoulder, car accident.
Oh no, let's. Oh no.
Program, please.
No, she actually plays a legacy character, an old time character. She is playing the role of Nurse Chapel. Do you remember her?
Holy shit! Oh my gosh! Yes, Magil. What's her name? Roddenberry's wife, Magil Barrett.
Yes.
Am I saying it? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, actually, Major Barrett. I mean, she played Nurse Chapel, obviously, but she also played the Una character in TOS as well.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find she also played the voice of the starship there, Eric.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, and of course Troy's mother in TNG.
Wild stuff. Yeah, that's wild.
Yes, Sean. And if you're watching the recent Picard series, we heard that voice again in a beautiful little sequence there. So I was very happy to see that.
Okay.
Yes, so she is young Nurse Chapel. At this point, she hasn't joined Starfleet proper, so she's like a civilian contractor working under the Doctor.
That's why she's dressed in a skin-tight white uniform.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, now, that's actually the doctors kind of do that, though, right? Think of Discovery. So, but
Right.
we're going to keep
My real life doctor dresses in a cat suit when she comes in
Oh.
to check my hemorrhoids.
I'm just saying the doctors in the news have been doing some cool things.
It's Doctors DePaul.
What is this? No, it's not Westworld, Eric. You don't get that kind of treatment.
Oh, but to jump a little more into the episode proper, I'll say very early on when I realized this is going to be another trial episode. Star Trek's always had a very long and I would say prestigious history for their kind of trial focused episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very curious to see how that would translate. And I was curious for you guys, having watched Discovery, is this the first time they've done this in new Star Trek? Or did they do one in that series as well?
That's a good question.
There may have been something that came up with violations of rules and things, but I don't think there has been an actual formal trial episode in Discovery or New Trek.
Not that I can remember.
My knowledge. Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, I'm happy that this series continues to call back to the stuff that made Star Trek great back in the day. And I'm curious to see how you guys think that they handle it this time.
Caleb, just out of curiosity, are you thinking of the Next Generation episode called, I think it was called What is a Man?
Measure
of a Man.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. But the menagerie back in TOS, and I guess even the first episode of TNG, even though that wasn't a very great one, Encounter at Farpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
It had trial elements too. And
if you stretch your imagination.
Yep.
And there was wasn't there an episode called Court Martial in TOS?
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Pretty sure there is.
Well, I know there were a bunch of court martials then. I don't remember if that's the name of the episode.
Oh, but the Drumhead, another one of my favorites from TNG.
Yeah, that's good.
And me and Eric just talked about one recently with Distant Origin from Voyager, which had its trial elements maybe in the last third. One of the stronger episodes of Voyager as well.
Yeah, Court Martial, season 1, episode 20 of TOS.
I don't remember that one. I'll take a look what that is. But so yeah, the trial here. What are you guys thinking?
Well, going into it, yes, I also realized, we got another trial episode coming in here. I was immediately concerned because they can go one or two directions. They could go, wow, this is really insightful, and this is powerful, and this is meaningful and resonant. Or it could be, this is heavy-handed. It's a little too on the nose. It is too transparent. And I was very concerned because that has been a strong criticism of some of the modern series. So when I saw it going that way, I was like, let's see how this is going to go. I was concerned.
That's interesting. That's interesting apprehension. It makes your apprehension is logical, but for some reason I'm so team Strange New Worlds that I didn't even have that thought. I was just excited. I just have perhaps an illogical amount of faith in this show, at least up to this point. So I just went into it like, let's do it. I want to get to the bottom of this and see how they work it out.
Yeah. So how do you feel like they've done with this one?
Well, I think because Carl's apprehension is very very relevant. I think they danced the line well enough
Hmm.
between what Carl was talking about, because it's definitely something to fear in actually any modern show, not just Star Trek. Like, are they going to be too on the nose? I think they danced the line well enough, well enough that it didn't bother me.
Wait, I'm so sorry.
I have perhaps other legal issues about the way things transpired, but as far as current cultural relevance, I think they danced the line well enough.
I'm so sorry, Eric. Okay, you just answered my question. I'm so sorry. You said as far as current cultural stuff, they danced the line pretty well.
Well enough. For me, anyway.
When you say dancing the line, I think that what you and Carl are referring to is whether or not this is an allegory for something going on in modern times or modern politics, right?
Well, it definitely is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There's no question. It's just let us deduce it on our own rather than shove it in front of us and then refer to it over and over and over. So that's the line I think we're talking about.
When it comes to this kind of stuff in Star Trek, it is always, well, they do their best to make it an analogy, to make it, resemble. They don't actually, historically or even now, directly address the issues of the time. So it's always a hint. It's always, it's an alien. It's not the people. It's a situation. It's a robot. It's not. They always tell the story in a way that is consistent with the science fiction world, but does not, directly point at the modern era specific issues. Again, they've been more or less successful throughout the series of that, but that was the idea. And so, yeah, once again, they were able to summarize many different complex issues here without it being specifically about any one. So that's a delicate line to walk.
I have a confession to make, and I just realized it while Eric was talking. This whole time, I'm focused on the plot of this. I'm focused on trial procedure, and it just fucking occurred to me while Eric was talking that this is a metaphor for trans rights. I feel like a fucking idiot.
Well, now remember,
Well, hold on.
It's not like this stuff isn't forefront in my mind.
not only, see, that's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Because
Yes, not only.
that it's not only, and this is what makes it Star Trek and subtle and well constructed.
Yeah.
It is not just trans rights that are being, profiled here. And so, that's the magic of it, though. That's where, when we're talking about Star Trek's take on these issues, they can tell a story and they can summarize many topics, or they can imply one but not directly address it. Once again, that is only one of the many concerns that they manage to summarize here, which is what makes this very interesting. There are other topics.
Okay, yeah.
I'm waiting for Eric. I feel like he was going to jump in, so I'm waiting.
This is profound. It's profound. This is all profound. No. So obviously Una is on trial because of her Illyrian, background that she kept a secret. She joined Starfleet willingly, knowing that would exclude her, per regulations. And now that it's out, she's obviously under trial because I guess in the Star Trek world, this would be considered like a major embarrassment that they had this person serving in Starfleet, achieving a high rank, and all this business. So bad PR for Starfleet. And just to double down a little bit more on the real world allegory. Some or maybe all of you have heard me tell this before in the room, but one of my roommates when I was in the Army, years later, after we were roommates, he was an officer in the Army, in the U.S. Army, and in 2009, he actually went public on the Rachel Maddow show, and went public as being homosexual and actively serving. in the army, and it was kind of a big deal at the time. And he did it, I guess, because he felt like the Obama administration at the time was kind of like they were trying to push reform on the old "don't ask, don't tell" rule, but I guess he felt they were kind of backing off it at the time, so that's why he like kind of threw his hat into the ring. It was all a big hubbub. He did he did get discharged like in I'm assuming dishonorable in 2010 because he became like quite the activist, showing up all the time and like chaining himself to like the White House fence and stuff. Um, and they kicked him out of the military. And then not too many months after that, the Obama administration did repeal that rule, actually. So then that's in 2010 is when the rule ended. That had been ongoing since the Clinton era of "don't ask, don't tell." Because before Clinton, it was like you just can't even serve, period. But then there was this thing that if you kept silent and if we don't know about it, then it's like okay. So yeah, there. And then, so it's obviously something I can't not think about is Dan Choi is his name. And so yeah, it's right there. It's interesting to think about because especially younger viewers may not remember that time, even though it was just 13 years ago for us.
You were thinking that maybe this was a story or this is a legal case talking about trans issues. Now we're talking about well, actually maybe it's something about gays in the military. Well, maybe it's something about privilege. Maybe there are aspects of race in here. All of this is what makes it a powerful episode because it's not a single thing that is blatantly pointing at one item of our modern society and going, this is what the issue is. They've managed to nuance many, many different complex ideas and simultaneously tease them out in dialogue while still telling a science fiction story. So this is why this episode has a certain, resonance and power that is surprising, even in the modern era where things tend to be less subtle.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. I agree with everything that everyone has said so far. There was also something very telling I could tell about this, and it's because it's the first episode of the show that I watched. You have your core group of main crew members, your main characters. Throughout most of this whole episode, they're watching it like we are, which I think is very telling. It's almost as if they're learning along with us, but they are. Everybody is. Because what the lawyer does in this with the defense attorney, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. I didn't write it down. She creates new law. She creates new law. Nobody in that courtroom knows that she herself is a, I want to say Valerian, but it's not. It's Illyrian. So she is, arguing very strongly about a position that she personally feels about without telling everybody that she has a personal involvement.
Well, they know. They know she.
I think they know.
She.
They know she's Illyrian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So they know she's from that planet. I guess you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's like considered this famous civil rights attorney in universe.
All right.
Now they don't know probably that they had a prior relationship.
Yeah.
Not relevant.
Her and her client.
Not relevant.
Which I think they also do subtly.
What kind of relationship was that, by the way?
I just mean as having a little bit more investment on a personal level, even though they're estranged.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was really, you can really feel the thoughtfulness in wanting to tackle a big episode like this. These trial episodes, like I said, they have their prestige in Star Trek history. And so it would have been really easy for them to just kind of pick one topic of civil rights, kind of one lens. But I love the way they weaved all the kind of intersectionalities in that overall banner of civil rights. I think they did a really good job balancing that all. Just little bits of dialogue here or there really fleshes it all out.
Yeah, when I used to watch this, The Next Generation on videotape, it'd be interesting. They'd have, I don't know what I used to call them, but they'd have one that had to do with a hot political button issue.
Yes.
Like one time Deanna Troy got pregnant, and there's a great scene where they're all around the conference table arguing about what she's going to do with her baby. And she's like, "Excuse me, it's my baby. I can decide what to do about it." And then after that, they'd have like an action episode. It would be about the Borg or something like that. And then after that, they'd have another hot political button issue. Kind of weird that I got in like a part 2 of a 2-parter that had to do with with this issue.
Well, kind of, sort of, because actually, if you had seen last week's episode, it was like a swashbuckler. It was like an action piece.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Which almost had nothing to do. It had a little bit, but almost nothing to do with this actual story.
Yeah.
And this one is basically just talking in rooms, but it was still good. And that's what I really like about this show, I think.
Yeah, it's perfect because, okay, also, like, the chatter that I've seen, like on Star Trek YouTube, etc., is for the most part remarkably positive. There's a lot of people proclaiming this the best episode of Star Trek, post DS9 or whatever. I'm not in that camp, but I definitely there's definitely a group out there that absolutely loved that they tackled this issue and the way they tackled it, and that's fine.
Well, I like your observation that everyone seems to be observing things in this episode. When you back up and think about it, that the meta-ness of that is very funny because, yes, I mean, there's the court case. There are, the other characters watching the court case. We got crew members watching the Vulcan dialogue. The Vulcan argument that was going on. Oh, they were just out of control. They almost cleared out the room with the expression, the emotional excitement shared between those two. But yeah, there's a lot of introspection and observation going on, but physical and psychological in this episode. That's very interesting.
So, I mean, this episode is kind of perfect from a production standpoint as well, because it is almost like a bottle episode in a way. As you said, it's mostly in one room or two rooms. And so that's perfect because we know this is an expensive show, and we know that they're always concerned about saving their money for other more showy episodes. So that behooves them to get that segment who absolutely adore it. See, that's like a double whammy if you're the producers of the show. I don't know if you, Carl, who has seen all Discovery, recognize the courtroom set that they have reused from Discovery.
I actually did. Yeah, I got it.
I didn't recognize it myself on first viewing.
Well, they added more mahogany here is what it was.
Yes. but once I learned, I can't unsee it now. So yeah, that's actually a set from like the recent season of Star Trek Discovery. It's actually Starfleet headquarters in the Discovery show, and they redressed it and made it into a courtroom.
Redressed, took out so much so much fluorescent lights and added mahogany because it's a courtroom. So it was well done.
Yes,
well done.
Yeah, but it's apt.
But I mean, getting to your idea or your concept here with old school Star Trek, original series and Next Generation, budgets were tight, and these kind of bottle episodes were common because they had to make the dollar stretch. We're on the ship. We put all this money in here. We, as viewers and as fans, understood that and knew that, and we knew that there was going to be a trade-off between, like action episodes versus some of these more bottle ones. However, classically, with the original series and back in Next Generation, what made Star Trek so strong is you can delve into some very powerful, thoughtful ideas and moments using science fiction as the tool, and it can still be in a single room, or it can just be between a couple of characters. And there is a depth and a realism and an importance of what was being discussed in those circumstances. Not every show can do that, because we know plenty of sci-fi shows or whatever that are the same. They got to save money. They got to keep it in a bottle, and they are boring or they are not really doing anything. True science fiction is supposed to be able to not just be about explosions and spaceships and lasers and stuff. It is supposed to be about bigger ideas. And modern series, not just Star Trek, has been moving further and further away from having these thoughtful kinds of episodes. So, yeah, on one hand, we need bottle episodes to save the budget, and it is something that we might expect in science fiction. But if you're gonna do that, give me something of value. If I'm trapped in a room with somebody, if we're buried in a tunnel and it's just two characters together, there needs to be something powerful being discussed to keep me engaged. And they did it. They did it here.
Carl, I've got a question for you. I agree with everything that you said, but let me ask you this, because I'm going to be like devil's advocate here. I hate when people fucking say that, but okay. Do you think the fact that they did everything that you said, but they did it in a format of a courtroom, which is just the easiest by the book way to create drama, even though there's been many courtroom dramas that are very good. Do you think that is a cheap and easy way to get there, or do you think there may have been another way to get there? And can you think of ways where they did either or in the past in Star Trek?
Oh, sure. One of the really cool things about Strange New Worlds is they repeat patterns that we have seen from the original series that ordinarily you would think would be too obvious or too hackneyed or too we've seen this before. But they have this amazing ability to repeat what we have seen in the past, but give it a respectful depth and a new perspective on it. So it's like sentimental, yet they are still taking us someplace new.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the quickest answer I have to that. But the extended answer is, well, this is Star Trek. There's all kinds of ways other than a courtroom where they have put social issues on trial in a variety of circumstances. Who did Riker fall for? What's in Troy's belly? It's just they you can do social stuff in so many different broad ways.
Yeah.
And they have done that in Star that but going back to the courtroom in Star Trek is classic, especially if they pick the right topic. And once again, this is so consistent with the original series court type scenario. Again, I agree with you. Ordinarily, putting it in the court, in the court scenario, it would be so, done. We've seen them do this before, but once again, Strange New Worlds has this remarkable ability to tip the hat and, in a sentimental way, bring back things that we have seen in the past. And I mean, come on, Star Trek doing a court scene as part of a science fiction show has been copied by everybody else in between, even Star Trek. It's so which was what was part of my concern. It's so easy to have made this corny and to make this, just retreading something that we've seen before. But once again, they managed to pick a topic of sufficient breadth and depth, sentimental in a way that was strong and connected us with what happened in the original series. They talked about new interesting items, and they told the story in a way that was believable and interesting. You're talking about these characters, watching the other characters. We got to know people and these characters. So yeah, I mean, Star Trek is good for telling these kind of stories in other ways. Ordinarily, the fact that it was in a court case would have been hackneyed or done too many times. But I'll ask you, do you think that this felt too done, or do you think that this felt, not fresh because it happened to be within the court case?
Well, let me jump in real quick before Sean answers. Yeah, the other very common, typical way in Star Trek that they tell a story like this, I mean, of cultural relevance, is it's usually an alien society that represents some type of stance in our current society, whether it's in TOS and there's these guys who have black on one side of their face and white on the other side.
I didn't get that one. I didn't get that one. I wasn't sure what they were getting.
And they're at war with the guys who are the opposite, like black on the left, right on the white. Or the one where in TNG, Wesley falls into the flower bed. And then just by hurting the flowers, he's going to get like a death sentence. I don't know if that's supposed to be Singapore or something like that. And then there's the one where there's the society where all the males of the species are subservient, and Riker gets caught up in that business. So that's usually what they do if they're outside of the court style. But yeah,
I can't believe you brought out some of the worst examples.
I didn't think of them as worse. I just thought of like obvious
Not
ones.
the subtle ones. No.
Oh,
I don't hate all those episodes.
All right, Carl, I'll go back to your question. Do I think it was short and easy? Why? No, not at all. Because I don't know how else they would handle this issue without bringing it before. You know what, though? No. I think that this is very topical. It is very timely because at some time or another, this issue is going to be before our Supreme Court. Okay, it's going to be big. It already is big. And I think I was just being kind of academic when I said, oh, well, the easiest way to make something dramatic is to put it in a courtroom. However, I like the way that we get to see the two parts, state their cases, and the defense does it much better by framing it in a civil rights way as opposed to she broke the law, that's it kind of way.
Well, a couple of things. When you say that this is an issue that's going to be confronted by the Supreme Court or something like that, which issue are you talking about? Because I'm saying that the stuff that they're discussing here is not a single issue.
Oh no, it's not going to be as broadly just determined by this. I mean, if you look at some of the stuff that they've just recently did with the redistricting in Alabama, and then I think it was the same issue in Louisiana. I don't know why they couldn't have consolidated those cases and made the same decision for both states at the same time. There are reasons for that, but where am I? I have been drinking, by the way. Sorry. But not, usually I don't talk about these important subjects,
There you go.
when I've been drinking in a podcast.
Talk about the Beyond or some other cheap horror crap or something. But I did want to comment when Carl was talking about how, other Star Trek maybe doesn't do this stuff so subtly. This doesn't necessarily have to do with the issues, but I love that scene when M'Benga and is it Ortegas?
Yes.
Are watching Spock and the other guy, and Spock comes over. He's like, "I'm sorry for my outburst. That guy brings out the worst in me." And I was like, "Oh, look at that! Some nice subtle Vulcan emoting. This isn't like the movies, the J.J. Abrams movies, where when Spock's pissed because he's gonna go into a rage and just start punching walls and everybody around him." So I appreciate that.
Okay, this is the type of shit that I didn't want to watch.
Yes.
Wait, which shit?
Spock shit. I'm like so over that character.
Oh, so that's
okay.
So that was your. I suspected
that was my thing. I have seen pretty much all the movies except for like the last two, and I am so totally over Spock and being logical and blah 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 blah. I get it. I've seen it. Stop showing it to me. Stop it.
Oh.
Stop talking about it.
What?
It's okay.
I felt very much the similar way coming into this season. I was like, "Oh, come on, what are we gonna do new?" I mean, you haven't seen Discovery, but
Yeah.
they even drag him out in there, and he's got a big element in that series. So I was like, "Oh, I feel like it's time to just move on." I understand why he's here, but no, they really turn me around with just handling him well in this series.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two sides to it as it pertains to Strange New Worlds, at least with the fandom at large, as far as I could tell. Because one thing you don't know, Sean, is that because this is like our earlier time before TOS, they're playing with this idea that Spock's character at this time is much more unsettled between his human half and his Vulcan half. So not in this episode, but in other episodes of Strange New Worlds, we've seen much more of his human side come out in other ways, and sometimes comically in an episode I really like from season 1. So they're playing with that to try to make it not completely the same Spock. That said, there's another faction out there in Star Trek YouTube land
Oh boy.
that hates this version of Spock that is overly like funny or comical at times. Not in this episode, in other episodes. And there's other people who hate it, and they call it the infantilization of Spock is what they call it. So yeah, those are usually, and they're mostly Star Trek fans, like 45 and up, who fall into this group. So yeah, there is that. But
And apparently he's Gregory Peck's grandson, which I think is cool.
Oh, really?
Oh wow.
That is cool.
You all didn't know that?
No, I didn't know.
That was the first thing that popped up when I Googled the actor, or when I looked on IMDb.
No, but generally, I like Spock to some degree in all his iterations. Although when they first cast this show, when it first came out, I kind of thought, man, how is this guy going to be Spock in the shadow of not only Leonard Nimoy, but of course Zachary Quinto as well. But now that the show's been out for a while, I much prefer this new Spock to the Zachary Quinto version.
I'm sorry, I can't hold back my disdain. I just always thought that he was very wrong for that role. But maybe it's not him. Maybe it's just the characterization in general.
This guy?
Oh, Zachary Quinto.
Oh, okay. All right.
Quinto. I don't know how.
I'll just tell you, when we first started talking, like before we started recording, and I was watching the first episode on mute, and like he's having sex, or sort of having sex, I guess, with this girl. Oh, I just when I watched the movies, I told you I didn't watch the original series, but when I watched the movies, the only things that I liked about Spock was his like mutual disdain for DeForest Kelley. I always thought that was really funny. But I never got the logic. Like, I get it. Okay, he's logical, whatever. He can help me with my geometry homework. But it never really appealed to me. Probably because I'm such a emotional person, or, somebody who looks for attention. As my teachers used to say, Sean employed an attention-getting device. Spock doesn't do that. He's the exact opposite of me. So
yeah, and I mean, in modern times, I think it's really easy to see a parallel of Spock's character, and I'm sure there's a lot of people like on the autism spectrum who probably
yeah,
what do you call it, like associate with him or like see themselves in him.
Yeah.
And I wonder, because obviously the spectrum in the way we know it now didn't exist in the 1960s. I'm curious, what all actually went into the actual origin for the character in TOS. Was it just people who were just what would you call it, prosaic? Is that the right word? I don't know, maybe that's the wrong word. But I wonder if it was just for people who were just come across as analytical or whatnot. Or
I don't know for certain, but if you look at Bones, Kirk, Spock, they represent extreme archetypes of
the triumvirate, the classic triumvirate in literature.
And so if you're going to have a show, series, a story that goes on and on, you want an interplay between those extremes so that you can explore things. You can see it in the exaggerated, and you can contrast it. Sean, you're talking about you're an emotional person. I would think you would find it very interesting, the tension between someone who's not that way. There's a huge space in between someone who's very emotional and then someone who's very logical, and you throw them in a situation of stress or unknown, situations. There's space in there for all kinds of, shenanigans. So that dynamic is what I believe, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. I think that's, the space they were trying to create with early Star Trek.
Isn't that Kirk and Spock pretty much?
Well, the original setup was Bones was the heart, and Spock was the brain, and then Kirk was like the mediator between the two. And it's the same thing with like Harry and Ron and Hermione. Hermione's Spock, Ron is Bones, and Harry is Kirk. It's the same setup. And by the way, like that dichotomy of the heart and the brain, just listen to the unpublished tapes of me and Sean when we do Best Picture podcasts, the banter we have before and after. If we were to release that stuff, it's like a prime example of like Spock versus McCoy, just talking about random things.
I don't know what the fuck he's talking
I don't know
about.
either.
You basically just called him a green-eared bastard. I heard it right there. I heard you.
There you go. Yeah. I'll get you guys some Romulan ale. You can talk it out.
Well, that's the problem. He's already, whenever these conversations, he's had all the ale, but I'm like completely sober.
Not all the ale. Jesus Christ! You make it sound like some sort of like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
No, I'm just no. I'm just saying it wouldn't be so. We wouldn't spar so much if I had been imbibing too. So that's what I'm saying.
By the way, good reference, Sean. Now I'm just picturing you guys in that movie. My God.
I've never seen that movie. I feel so
You got to watch it. It's amazing. It's a great movie.
Back to the episode. We haven't even talked about how, like, this actress who plays Nira, the civil rights attorney, she's obviously like a guest character. It's not someone we've ever known in the series before. And now everyone wants her to come back again in the future. Shoot, some people want her to have her own like Star Trek spinoff where she just deals with cases in the Federation.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
But I mean, she's a Nigerian actress, as Mbenga. He's Nigerian as well, but she's incredible. She's really the standout in the episode besides the story itself. Think of all the impactful guest stars in Star Trek Discovery or Picard, and good luck with that.
I was even contrasting her to the person they set up in the last episode as potentially being a new member of the crew.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh no, I hope we see more of this actress more than our old pal there. So.
Oh, and then apparently, like she tweeted today or yesterday, the actress did, and apparently she's a lifelong true Star Trek geek in real life.
Oh wow, that's that. I always love when that stuff happens, and then they come and the fandom just embraces them. Yeah, that's great. But what I'm shocked that we haven't gotten to at this point is with Sean. This is your introduction to Captain Pike here. The three of us, we all have pretty well-established thoughts on him for the listeners. But what do you think of him for your introductory episode?
Of him in this?
Yeah.
It's not really a good episode for him. It's not that he's like an asshole or anything, but he doesn't have a lot to do in it. It's fine, I guess.
Did you pick up that the opposing counsel, the prosecutor, was like his ex or current relationship?
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say he doesn't do much, but damn, he waves that knife around at her in that one scene, and I was getting a little concerned. That was a bit nuts.
I do have one complaint about this, and it's not really fair because that's not what we're here to see.
I'm predicting what this is going to be.
That's the civil procedure in this. She calls up the former or the current crewmates. Wait, is it the prosecutor calls up the current crewmates of the lady, the defendant, and she asks, "Did you know that she was a Illyrian?" And no, I didn't. No, I didn't. Dude, all this is usually done via depositions before the trial. You have months and months, perhaps even years, to depose these people for like 2 hours and not waste the judge's time at a trial, which the judges would be really pissed about. Yeah, but it's okay. It's TV. That's fine. It's not How to Get Away from Murder, which is an egregious breaker of the procedure rule. Like, this is not how it's done in real life. But then I understand we're watching Star Trek. It's all right. There was also one other thing. I'm so sorry, everybody. When she pulls up the asylum rule. And that's what it's called, the asylum rule. And what drives me crazy is that she brings this out at the end of the trial as if it's her, trump card that she's going to use at the last minute. Read the asylum rule, opposing counsel, and she reads it from a book. Even though everything's digitized by this year, they have an old-timey book. And when I say old-timey, I really mean old-timey. They actually even colored it the same way a law book would be. And then, opposing counsel reads it from the book. And why didn't you mention this before at the beginning? This is your prime issue that drove me crazy.
Hey,
It's okay. I get it. It's, and basically, it outlines everything that the defendant, and I can't remember her name, the first number
Una?
one,
Una.
Yeah, it says everything that she said when she was being questioned, and that's great. But the problem is that her lawyer didn't prepare her for questioning. She didn't tell her to say these things, even though they were true. So it just sort of like the cards just sort of fell in favor of the defense attorneys in her hand.
yeah,
So
she's a Columbo type. She doesn't like the new technology, and she holds all of her cards until the end for the big reveal.
no, you don't do that as a lawyer in trial. You can't. You just can't. You're putting your client at a risk.
Hey, things work out in her favor. It's her superpower.
So I expected the second and third criticism you just made, Sean. I didn't expect the first one. But in addition to those things, some things that just bothered me, and I'm no lawyer or anything of the sort, but I mean, I guess it's supposed to be tongue in cheek early on when she has her public defender, and he's just like discussing strategy in front of the prosecutor. That was insane, but I know it's supposed to be like a tongue in cheek moment.
Yes.
That was weird. And then having Pike's girlfriend be selected as the prosecutor.
Yeah.
I know she was assigned the case, but can she recuse herself? I mean, isn't that insane?
Yes.
Yeah.
She should have. She should have. Absolutely. In fact, she has a conversation with him saying, and he's like, I can't believe I wasn't called as a witness. And she has to explain, no!
Yeah, she's like advising him. Like suddenly she's working for the
Yeah, shut up. You both should not be involved in this.
Yes, that was my next thing. Like I understand they have a thing, but fine, she's the prosecutor. They should not be canoodling during the trial. That was insane to me. Like that felt way beyond board. Yeah, and then like Sean said, like the defense attorney should be aware of many things, into the trial. And it seems like she was surprised, I believe, like when Una revealed that she turned herself in, it seemed like the defense attorney was surprised herself. And how could you have your client on the stand reveal like such a major point, like in real time? Like, so some of that stuff was like getting a bit much for me, just saying.
I'm positive that she knew beforehand. They just played it kind of awkwardly, but
I don't think she knew.
I mean, I think that it was the whole base of her case.
She should have known.
And that's why once she was like, because she had La'an investigating, and then once she kept hammering, like, who do you think it was? I got the sense that, again, this is like a Columbo thing, where she just had an intuition and figured it out at some point. Just wasn't telling anybody.
All right.
Because otherwise, her whole case is fucked.
Luan over there, the descendant of Ricardo Montalban.
I want to talk about that.
I'm glad she didn't end up actually doing something illegal. I can't believe she put her in that position, but I get it, like nice dramatic tension to show that Lon would go to those lengths. But that's insane, like how she's just going on a tear. And then, I mean, because obviously, how could you even use like evidence that you yourself use the legal means to acquire? And then when she mentioned, eventually, like part of her guilt, La'an, is that she was afraid that maybe someone got a hold of her own personal log. Maybe it's because I'm already so distrustful of the government, even before events of recent years. I would never, ever put that in my personal log, like on a digital personal log. I would never say something like that. But maybe that's just me because I'm just crazy paranoid.
I wouldn't either.
Well,
I also thought that.
When she did it at the time, she was angry and didn't care. I think being a security officer, the use of these digital records is well understood as a potential point of investigation in the future. And but she didn't care at the time because she was so upset. So, uh, you know, that was part of her guilt about that, and why she was so concerned about that. She deleted it immediately because she knew that she messed up. But still, yes, I get the sequence in all this.
Oh, that's good. I didn't remember that detail of her deleting. That makes it
Oh yeah,
better.
yeah, because she was, she was on the brink of turning her in. Is the problem?
Right.
That was crazy.
She did, she was going to tell somebody. Forget it being in the log. She was going to, expose her. So she was very upset at that time, and so the fact that she chose to record it is just the, the small side of what was going through her at that time. But I'm not so convinced that Nira, the attorney here, knew that Una had revealed it herself so soon. I thought she put it together after La'an's, coming in that confidential discussion. That's
Yeah.
well into the trial, and makes it a little less than so convenient how things come together in the end. Come on, there's two aspects of this. One, you want to tell a good story. So from a dramatic standpoint, of course, you got to do the Columbo thing. But within the context of the story, I think we are not supposed to have known that even Nira, our super attorney here, is not supposed to have put together that Una actually revealed it herself. So I'm going to go with that as helping with this being quite so convenient in the end. But not sure. That's just my take.
Yeah, and I'll say I feel like that plot point was very predictable. It was after that first scene with Lon trying to make Uhura do that kind of illegal action. That's when I started to be like, I feel like it was probably just going to end up being Una.
Mm-hmm.
But even though it did feel predictable, I still think that the moment worked well.
And given the situation, and given the story that we're trying to tell, there was significance to her coming out that way.
Yeah. But I did want to point out, I think I mentioned early on that I was wary of the fact, and I didn't understand why they would make the choice of having Leon, or La'an, I should say, be a relative of Khan. And I've been just waiting, like, are they going to do something with this? Was there a purpose from this from the start? Do you think this was it? Her role in this dynamic?
I think it's the beginning. I can only assume that it'll come up in other ways going forward.
Well,
Yeah, because I'm still waiting for the justification. It seemed like an odd choice from the start.
Well, the only justification I can see up to this point, which is okay enough, I suppose, is, except for the part that it's similar to Una, is that she's obviously dealing with her ancestry, and all all that implies, because she's almost like Harry Potter walking around, because of her name. I mean, like, anywhere she goes in the Star Trek universe, everyone knows who she's related to. So, I can see that just being part of her character, but I'm sure they'll utilize that, I'm assuming, in some other ways in the future.
yeah. I mean, the other thing is, you just want rich characters. There is all kinds of stuff that could be in the, clone con box that they can come up with, or that's potential moving forward that they probably haven't even thought of yet. So I think they did their best to try to pick characters that have room for growth. Like, look at what they did with Una here. None of this, is a part of what the original number one story was that I know of. Right? I don't know all
Yeah.
the stuff about her. The genetic engineering and the superpowers and all of that. I always thought that number one, from original series pilot episode, she right by herself was a strong and interesting character, and there was a lot of space to do things with just that aspect of her. To make her super powered and genetically engineered and all this other stuff. This is cool too, but I always thought her character just by herself was very interesting. So I think they have chosen these characters, some to resonate with the past of Star Trek, but some moving forward to just give us space to explore things with who they can be. So
yeah. Certainly on screen, we never knew that much about the Una character, and we didn't even know her name was Una.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, one
exactly.
is her name. But
Even
anyway,
funnier.
she was like unnamed, just number one before. But that being said, I have just learned like in the last 2 weeks that Strange New Worlds, that many episodes and storylines, including Una's background, I've just learned that they are drawing heavily from novels and Marvel Star Trek comics from like the 80s.
Okay.
So kind of like what they did with the Solo movie in Star Wars, where they pulled from existing material. I did not know that a lot of the stuff that we have seen is pulling from written Star Trek.
Okay. All right.
That's interesting. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so that actually existed already in her background as per novels.
Cool. I didn't.
Her Illyrian nature or whatever. But yeah. Okay, here's a major thing, I guess, as it pertains to the episode, because it's another thing that's perhaps a sticking point for me. Okay, we see, now that all the cards are on the table, and we know how the episode plays out, does it make legal sense that you pull up all this stuff? And I understand there's a conflict in the regulations and the laws and whatever. I get it. But does that work like that? Because even if we go ahead and say, oh, you know what? You do qualify and we're granting you asylum. But does that somehow negate the regulation of like falsifying your application, etc.? Like, that doesn't really work for me personally at the end of the day. Like, because everything's more or less happily ever after at the end of the episode, and she gets to, assumingly rejoin the crew and move on with her career. But I would think if it went down the way it went down, that, okay, we're not going to put you in prison. Maybe we'll give you an honorable discharge, but we still have to kick you out of Starfleet. Like,
I want to address that. No, you're talking about like, okay, so the captain acted with his best judgment. Does that negate the actual statute that says somebody who's genetically engineered isn't allowed in a Starfleet? Is that what you're saying?
That and lied on, in their admission process.
So the defense attorney, she points out to that admiral, she says, well, what about the time that you helped, people that were going to become extinct because of drought? You helped them out. There was another time where you warned somebody about an impending thing. Doesn't that go against the prime directive? And she acted like those were bad things, but nobody brought up. She didn't bring up the fact that there's also this amnesty rule. Okay. But the amnesty rule does not necessarily trump the statute. I hate using that word. Does not necessarily trump the statute that says people who are biogenetical people cannot be in Starfleet. So if you are trans and you can't be in the military, the fact that some officer said, oh yeah, you can be in the military even though you're trans, that's going against the statute nevertheless. Okay.
Yeah.
But what she poses is an argument that says this is secondary authority. The fact that you can have, I hope this makes sense, the fact that you can have captains and high-ranking officials making decisions based on their own discretion despite the law means that perhaps the law should be questioned. And she says at one point, the law isn't something that we should follow. And oh man, I wish I knew. But it's more like a guideline.
Yeah, an ideal.
And it's malleable and it will change. And we see, just as we see it in real life. Does that make sense what I just said?
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. And I know you can, I mean, if you want to relate it to American history, there was this whole idea that, with the Constitution, when it was originally laid down, that all men are created equal, etc. And then obviously, slave practices and things in the South went against that ideal. And it took at least 100 years of American history to work that out initially.
Yeah. And it took people who were like, fuck that. I'm going to sit in the front of the bus. Fuck y'all. We'll take it to court and find out what they say. It took a number of people like that to make the laws as we do today. A lot of them didn't succeed. And like Dred Scott back in the day.
Yeah, which is nice that this one doesn't really succeed in really changing things going forward for all Illyrians. It just kind of helps in this particular case. I like that they left it open-ended like that.
Yeah. So I get how, yeah, of course, you know, in terms of the laws and the statutes, I of course, like, you know, Star or the Federation or Starfleet can amend itself going forward, and I'm all cool with that. It's just obviously most of the Starfleet types, the admirals and the opposing council in this episode, obviously they have political leanings towards the status quo, I would assume, and in protecting Starfleet and the tradition up to this point. And so it seems weird to me that they would acquiesce so much, because they all seem relieved. Like, you know, once the defense attorney, you know, pulls out her trump card, they get relieved, but it seemed a little bit out of character for me, because they all seem like, or most of them seem like company people, so to speak. So it seemed kind of weird for me for them to like relent.
I think they kept drawing the line that, you know, I mean, in general, Starfleet is a very progressive organization, but there's some sort of weird dynamic going on in this early stage with the Vulcan influence, like the fact that one, I don't know, is he an admiral?
He's the JAG. He's the Judge Advocate General.
He's coming in and overseeing and drawing like a really hard line. They have I think is it the president of Starfleet? He's like watching on the TV there. You know, this is a big issue for the Vulcans. For the humans, I got the sense that they were more like we don't necessarily love that we're in this case. Like this is an awkward line for us to be in. So I think that they were happy just to be able to be like, okay, we want.
I would say that, yeah, you and I just see like the human admirals types. I would say that you and I, Caleb, see them differently in the context of the universe, I think, because they seem to me to really represent like the typical old guard, so to speak. And I did wonder if the Vulcan JAG, if perhaps he had ulterior motives of some sort, or maybe it's just the Vulcan prejudice that we've seen before in other early early time period Star Trek.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, the Vulcans are the assholes.
Yeah.
What do you think about that dynamic there, Carl?
Yeah. There were so many different things I was having trouble parsing that out. There is an issue of a status quo that needs to be maintained by the old guard, I think. But, you know, anytime laws change, it's incremental like this, where the first case where the hypocrisy is so painfully obvious, but they can't officially change the law. They need some little out. They need something to alleviate the pain and hypocrisy that has been highlighted. But that's what cracks, you know, opens the door a crack for things to move in the future. So, you know, you all are identifying degrees of comfort from Starfleet about, you know, what's going on here. And yeah, I can't quite figure out who is how far along that continuum with the crew. You know, I agree. The Vulcans seem to be having a big issue with all.
Yeah, weirdly, the Tellarite sems the most open.
Chill,
Yeah.
rather chill.
They're known for being the most argumentative
Yeah.
species. Ironically, he seems the most open to change.
But still, no. But so, you know, that's my take on this. That there is a contingent of the establishment that recognizes the hypocrisy of the situation, and they just want out.
Yes.
So that's one aspect of it. But then there's also, I get a feel that some of them or some folks in that room recognize how out of date the situation is. And while they cannot change the law formally to the degree they just needed anything, but they are willing to let it slide because they recognize something's wrong with this law. We got to come back. We're not going to settle it today, but we probably need to come back and do something about this in the future.
That's exactly how I took it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is this great hypothetical question about how there are three people on a desert island. and two of them decide that they draw lots because they're going hungry, and they have to decide amongst them who they're going to eat. So they draw lots, and two guys kill the third guy, and they take off in a boat, and like half a day later they're rescued and they're tried for murder. And there's this great exercise that somebody did where they had 9 different thoughts from 9 different judges, as if it went to the Supreme Court, of they broke the law, they committed murder, they must be executed, whatever. And then the other end of the spectrum is they didn't break the law, they had to do what they wanted to survive. And then in between there's 7 different ideas that go from one end of the spectrum to the other of how they think these two individuals should be punished. And do you all know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I haven't heard of this.
How that fits into what we're talking about?
Yes,
the law.
I do see how it relates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I hadn't heard it before, but yes, I get the analogy here. Yeah, it's interesting.
And sometimes, like, the law, the issues brought up to the court are just unique. And it's like, okay, well, we have what lower courts said, they're conflicting, so we're just going to have to make a fucking decision. Yeah. And we don't know one way or the other, so we're going to have to go with our knee-jerk reaction, which might be liberal or conservative.
The other thing that's hard to wrap your brain around, I mean, with this fictional universe, is that we get that all the old guard and society, we assume at this time in Star Trek, they have all this animus because, of course, in their history, there was World War III, and there was Khan, and there was the eugenics wars. So we get that they have that generational trauma in their past. But the reason I say it's a little bit difficult for us in our world to wrap our brain around it is because, like, we couldn't imagine being like 4 generations later and Americans still having like deep prejudice, let's say, against the Japanese or Germans. See, that's kind of weird. So it's kind of hard to relate to, I think, because it exists in this universe, but it's aside from deep-seated racism, it's kind of hard, or perhaps the West Bank, it's kind of hard to like wrap your brain around it.
About how quickly they progress forward, or
about how long and how deep this trauma is in the Star Trek universe at this point.
Oh,
yes. It's been multi-generational, but they're still like extremely afraid of augments, for lack of a better term. And spoiler alert for those like Sean who may not know, going up into DS9 times, even though this is like the beginning of change in Starfleet, sadly 100 years later, it's still an issue in the Star Trek universe with Bashir and all that other business.
Yeah.
Well, I cannot be surprised at the long run of prejudice. I just, of any type, it always seems to find a reason and always seems to find a way. So
yeah,
I'm not surprised that it's taken this long, or that in various ways it keeps popping back up.
Yeah, like a virus.
Mm-hmm.
But I did want to mention, because I feel like we're probably winding down soon, I had to mention this. Did any of you guys recognize the Vulcan judge that was a part of the group up there?
No, I didn't recognize him.
No, who is that?
Maybe this is just me having watched Land of the Dead I don't know how many times, but I was like, hey, it's Big Daddy, the main zombie walking around with a machine gun in Land of the Dead. And he also popped up in...
Is it really? Yes. Okay. Yes.
He also popped in RoboCop Prime Directives, that terrible sci-fi miniseries.
So,
but
there's one, the one older lady, which I misplaced. I thought she was from a couple other things that I saw. To her left is the guy with the stuff on his face, and then to her right, is it the guy on her right?
No. Oh wait. Are you talking about the Black Vulcan?
Yep, the Black Vulcan. The Vulcan judge. Yeah.
Oh, see, I was thinking of the bald one at first because I looked up Land of the Dead and I was like, he's black. What happened?
No.
But now I see. I wouldn't have recognized him because
he looks young.
He looks so much slimmer.
Yes,
in the face now.
It happens.
I've just seen that movie too many times. I was like, hey, it's my pal. There he is again.
That is crazy. I don't know how you could recognize him from that movie. He changed quite a lot. That's crazy.
Also, if he's going to give a shout out to random characters, there's one character in this. I feel like, I don't know, every time they're on the screen, I can't help but look at them. So I don't know why this attraction is, and I don't want to say attraction as in sexual attraction, but for some reason, I even looked the actress up, and that's Ortega or Ortega's. There's something about this character that I am somehow like, oh my god, who is playing her? Who is, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how to explain it.
she's an odd character. I don't know why, but I feel a similar attraction, and there's something infectious about her
Yeah.
kind of enthusiasm. She seems like she's really having a good time.
And I think it was just the fact that spoke her mind when she was having drinks with the
Yeah,
doctor, and she's talking about the two Vulcans over, like, oh, they're probably over there saying and making plans for this weekend, blah 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 blah. And the doctor's like, no, they're not. They're arguing. Okay, Mister Man of Wisdom. All right, I'm wrong. Whatever. But I enjoy her character. I thought it was is fresh. And by the way, speaking of people I may or may not be interested, is Tig Notaro is in this one, or is she in the other one?
No, I'm sorry. No, she's in the Disaster Discovery show.
And she's
Oh,
fantastic
jeez.
in Discovery.
Oh, and she's amazing. She's like the one good thing about Discovery.
Well, that's nice to hear. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know who she was until Discovery.
She was also the one good thing about that crappy movie Army of the Dead that came out during the pandemic. On
Oh,
Netflix, so.
she was, or did we talk about this already? How she was inserted into the movie?
yeah.
Yeah. Somebody was canceled, and she
Yep.
took his place, and
I think the cannibal guy was the cannibal guy who got replaced.
Another overly ambitious and kind of bad zombie flick. Yeah, Army of the Dead.
I hate that movie. It's terrible. It's
I took it as
terrible.
a popcorn flick. It was,
No, it's not a pop. It's no. If I ate popcorn and spent them, no, terrible.
Yeah, I'd spit it back out. That'd be stick in my teeth for days.
I can never figure out, Carl, how I can never be on the same page if it has to do with horror with these guys. Like, if they zig, I zag every single time. It's
Very
crazy.
true. Suspiria 2018. Oh boy.
Exorcist 2, and let's not forget.
Oh, get out of this podcast.
Eric, you're probably not going to want to talk about that in
There you
public.
go.
How you like it too.
I know.
I hate to tell you.
I feel so Illyrian when I bring that up.
Yeah.
Listen, as the judge in this case, all we have to do is look at the resolution the movie was shot in, and I'll know what the verdict will
There you go.
be.
Carl, I know you're not a horror person, but have you seen The Exorcist Part 2?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Well, James Earl Jones is fantastic.
No, don't say that. That's not true. He doesn't do anything in the whole movie. Stop it.
Yeah, just like spit some tomatoes out into some water, and that's about it. Turns into a moth, man.
Oh God!
But I'm hoping that Carol Kane will receive the Tig Notaro treatment because her introduction,
I think she is.
I was not impressed. I was like, oh god, this feels way out of step. But hopefully they'll bring it back around. And I like Carol Kane, by the way, but did not like her in that.
Yeah. While we were talking, I'm watching some episode with the sound off, and she was on there, and she looks great. And I'm assuming that she has that. Does she have that same wacky Carol Kane energy that she
Yes,
usually does?
100%. It's just older, but
Yeah,
yes.
Sean, if you were watching the episode number 1 of season 2 with the sound off, I'm going to ask you to stop because that
There you go.
episode is rather surprising. I think you should give it your full attention because
There you go.
Strange New Worlds is, in its way, very unique and very interesting, particularly among the new Star Treks. Give it your attention. Give it your attention.
Here.
I think when me and Carl discussed her last time, I see a lot of potential with that character going forward, which I was not expecting going in because I already knew she was cast, but I see tons of potential.
You were talking, Sean. You were talking about Ortegas and sort of her impact on you. One of the additionally remarkable things about Strange New Worlds is the depth and genuine interest that they are able to spark up in each of the characters. Now, you properly identified the quirky young energy that is Ortega's. If you like that about her in this episode, I encourage you to watch season 1 and 2 because that is definitely her throughout the series. She's got that kind of a youthful realism that she brings to the episode. But each character, I know, what you've said, and how you feel about Spock, but across the characters in Strange New Worlds, there is a remarkable depth in energy and uniqueness to them that really sets the series apart. You are drawn in to so many of these characters where you may watch another series or another, episode, another version of Trek, and you might not be so interested in the different characters. Strange New Worlds, the ones that we know and the ones that are new to us in the series, are remarkably interesting. So yeah, and everybody kind of likes it. And I'm trying to figure out who my favorite is. Because me and Eric go back and forth. We like the ladies, but I can't say it's just we like the ladies, but that is not.
No. I love the ladies, but lady in particular.
There's more to. There's some characters that
I
come back.
I freaking love Pike.
Me too.
Love. Anson Mount I freaking love that dude.
He's fantastic as Pike, and again, you didn't get to see a lot of him in. I'm talking to Caleb. You didn't see a lot of him. Sean, you didn't see a lot of him in this episode, but I agree. Anson Mount as Pike is really great, and for a variety of reasons. So yeah, enjoy this, but no, don't watch.
Yeah, just doubling down on Ortega's for a second. And it's remarkable. She only had a few moments in this episode, and yet, there it was. You saw it right away. But perhaps this might be the first time. I haven't thought on it too much. Unlike the first time a Star Trek series has really captured like the youthful character in an interesting way, because look who we have to compare her to in previous Trek. Chekhov, Wesley, Harry Kim, and I feel really bad, but
Absolutely.
the guys who name I can't remember from Enterprise right now.
Yeah,
Mayweather.
Yes.
Comparing Ortega's to her predecessors,
Yep.
It's laughable.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, you're lucky I didn't mention the Asian transporter guy in his one-piece sporty thing.
Oh, is that in this
well,
episode?
now I did.
Oh, you're gonna be sad. He was in season 1, but he's been replaced in season 2. Well, he wasn't replaced. I think the actor decided to walk away because he got a bigger role on a different show.
Vampire show. Why do I know this?
But yeah, I'm sorry. He has left. I hope he comes back at some point, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever mentioned, but just since we're spotlighting him, yeah, I was happy to see him on this. I'm happy he's got a bigger role. He was a regular on Degrassi, The Next Generation, for a long time. So, as a Canadian, I'm always happy to see my my brethren getting their moments. So.
That's Chief Kyle. Is that character?
Wow.
Oh, I know we were kind of winding down, but I got a couple other Ming Mongy points to bring up.
Oh,
well, the first one's not, but I really like the set that is like their version of 10 Forward. I'm not sure if it looked quite this way in previous episodes, but also I think I'm pretty sure this is another fantastic use of the volume-like technology. If you really look, I didn't catch it at first, but if you really look, you can see that just the table and chairs are like real, and that everything else is I'm pretty sure the volume in it, and just such a great use, because I just can't even imagine that set was all physical, because it's incredible. But I don't think it all is, but fantastic. The other weird sticking point, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my Ming Mong hat time. We always knew that Spock was the first serving Vulcan in Starfleet, and that doesn't pertain to T'Pol because she was never Starfleet. But with these like 2 additional Vulcans, so am I to believe that these guys just jumped in like right after Spock joined, but then somehow because of their previous experience they're like admirals. It just seemed weird to me. Like this is a bit early in Star Trek timeline to have all these Vulcans running around. But I'm right?
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that because obviously Vulcans are always around, but as part of Starfleet, is it determined that just because they are part of the legal system that implies they're part of Starfleet?
I just assume because of their uniforms.
Yeah.
That's what I went on, and so that seemed a little bit incorrect
interesting.
as far as the lore.
I love what Carl just touched on, that Vulcans may not necessarily be part of Starfleet, but they'll be part of the legal system. That's fascinating, which would fail ultimately.
Yeah, that plays a big role in Enterprise, the other prequel.
Yeah, I was about to say, Vulcans and their degree of control over humans in Starfleet has been problematic throughout the series. But yeah, that's Eric, that's a good point. I don't know if that means they're Starfleet.
They'd be horrible lawyers. There would be horrible judges.
Yes. Horrible at many things.
Yes, I definitely wouldn't want a Vulcan judge if I was going up for trial.
It's four bones here. We're all those green-blooded bastards. Oh no!
Even though, like I alluded earlier, I do have Vulcan tendencies when it comes to like real-world decisions in my life and real-world interactions. I mean, obviously, I'm not full Vulcan, but my thought process.
Oh, you're not? Oh my god!
But my thought process is very Vulcan in real life. And honestly, I think that made me like a terrible juror when I was in that jury trial I was in.
Oh no.
Because reflecting back on it, and Sean already knows the story, but because the short version is it was a murder case, and it eventually got thrown out. But had we gone through the entire process, because of some certain sticking points in the particulars of the case, my logical brain, I didn't feel like I could possibly convict this guy of murder. Even though, if you ask me, I think he probably did it, is my hunch. But just going by the letter of the law, I just no. I think he killed him, but not by the letter of the law. And I don't know how the attorneys could have possibly convinced me out of my stonewalling.
Wow.
Like if we had ever gone into, what do they call it when the jurors get all together at the end? Deliberations, or I don't know what that's called. I would have been that one guy, like against like the other 11.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't. If you're a juror and you're talking about letter to the law, like do they obey the law? You're not being a juror. You're supposed to figure out what factually happened.
Oh no! It wasn't the letter. It wasn't the letter of law in that sense. It was letter in the law in the sense that during the jury selection and during the trial, the attorneys and judge would bring up many times about beyond a shadow of a doubt and what that means. And that was the part that was like really getting me, because I really think that guy probably murdered that guy, but not beyond, that point. And so that's why I would have like stuck to my guns if we got into deliberations, and I feel like I would have pissed off the whole jury and everyone because they weren't going to like convince me out of that.
You felt like your instinct was the guy committed murder, but there's no proof to it. So therefore,
there was there was all circumstantial evidence, and there was a lot of circumstantial evidence,
okay.
But there was no smoking gun evidence in my personal opinion.
Okay.
But I'm just saying.
Yeah, should we round this down?
Yes, please.
Oh, you got to rate it.
What are we going to rate it out of today? Any unit of measures coming from you guys?
Yes, courtroom books.
Okay.
Useless courtroom books in the century. They don't even use now.
Pages in a courtroom book. There you go.
I was gonna do like vomit mosaic insignias, like accommodations. That's what I was gonna go with.
I love those, by the way. I want one.
Yeah, I love them. Well, I love how they evoke the originals. But all right, we'll go with law books. Out of 5, who wants to go first?
Who was first in the lineup? You were first in the lineup in the introduction.
Oh, me? Fine, I'll go first. again, I know there's like a very vocal faction out there of Star Trek fans who absolutely 1,000,000% think this is like the most amazing episode ever. I completely understand that position. But for me, because of some of those like procedural or like legal quibbles in my mind, um, I'm giving it a 3. But don't get me wrong. I like the episode overall, and I really enjoyed it, and I still love this show, and I was still very engaged. And even though I had those quibbles, it didn't ruin anything. But I'm just giving it a comfortable 3 out of 5.
Yeah, the same score I think you gave Dear Doctor and Distant Origin just a short while ago.
How does Caleb have a spreadsheet, or does he just have this crazy memory?
This is my crazy memory. Yeah,
I don't even know what those titles meant right now. And
oh my god!
He knows my rating of them.
Talked about them for an hour and a half apiece.
Oh yeah. Okay, never mind. They came back to me now.
But just a short while ago.
Still, how you remember my rating though? That's beyond.
Oh, I remember because I was stunned. But Carl, take it away. What's your how many law books out of 5 are you gonna give this one?
Again, I went in with great trepidation. I was not quite sure where they were going to go on this. I was afraid that they were going to be too heavy-handed. And despite all of that, Bottle show, strong things, some very exciting characters. I'm giving it 4.
Yeah, I'm also giving it a 4. I feel like they, just like you, I came in worried. I was like, oh no, like, is this going to live up to the legacy of this type of story in Star Trek? And yeah, I'm not going to put it up there with the best, at least not after initial viewing. But they definitely, did a very, very respectful attempt, and I'm very happy with it. And I'm looking forward to potentially seeing another one of these at some point down the line in new Star Trek if they can keep it this solid. But how about you, Sean?
What I liked and was depressed by this is that here in Star Trek, they've gone so far. They've explored unexplored planets. They've integrated aliens. Maybe integrated isn't a good word. Well, I could have said colonized.
Oh no,
but
that's the Vulcans.
Problematic.
Working with different aliens, all this, and it's so sophisticated and so futuristic. Yet racism still fucking exists. It doesn't, it's not a different race. It's a different thing. Wow. But it's still fucking there in the year 3000, whatever it is.
2256.
Hoot Nanny.
This isn't new. That's not new to Star Trek. It's been there before from the original series.
Yeah.
But I love how this was handled. This isn't the best thing ever. And just remember that going into this is the first episode of this particular series that I've seen. But I thought it was fucking great. I'm not going to give it a 5, but I'll go with the majority here. I'll go with Caleb and Carl and say 4 out of 5. So, Eric, loser!
That's right. Put him on trial.
Yeah.
Change that rating to 4.
Thank you. I'm going to give up my chess insignia.
Yeah, go back in time and give Extras 2 a 1.
Thank you, Caleb.
But hey, who would have thought that old Sean, the Star Trek hater, would like this?
Oh,
I'm not a Star Trek hater. I'm not a Star Trek hater.
My goodness.
But on our Sherlock Holmes thing,
there you go.
I was about to bring that up.
You're like talking about Star Trek. I'm like, stop talking about Star Trek. This is about Sherlock Holmes. It's 2 different things.
Or any podcast.
Even though it's not in that one episode, I know, but
it's such a part of my DNA. But I love your reaction, Sean, to the episode, and oh my gosh, if you could be inspired to watch more of Strange New Worlds in particular,
okay, hold on,
that would make my day.
Okay, let's not get carried away.
Make my year.
All right, this did bring me back to why I enjoyed Star Trek: The Next Generation back in the day. It really did. It really did trigger that. And I have AMC Plus, so I have the Star Trek: The Next Generation channel, known as BBC America. I don't know why.
Okay.
So sometimes I watch that, but you know what? I think I might watch more of this. Just don't ask me about it.
There you go.
Because honestly, if you like this one episode this much, I think there's some others that are are
Okay.
just,
Okay.
oh my gosh, so much more enjoyable when everyone gets involved.
Don't be that excited.
Exactly. I'm just gonna put Sean off from watching it if Eric keeps
Yeah.
talking.
Don't be really excited.
Yeah, Sean. The two things that I ask you to consider. So, given your background and what you have liked about Star Trek, uh, you might want to give season 3 of Picard a shot,
Mm.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
and watch Strange New Worlds from the beginning. You really dropped right into the beginning. I mean, in the middle of this season. I mean, this series is really remarkable. And I mean, out of the Star Trek that I've seen over the past 20 years, Strange New Worlds is doing some things that I have not seen in a long time. So, if you are dipping your foot back into the realm of Star Trek, especially being a next gen fan, season 3 of Picard, I wouldn't bother with 1 or 2. Season 3 of Picard, or start in Strange New Worlds from the beginning. I think it might be worth your time.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I definitely agree.
And just to pique your interest a little bit more, Sean, there are a number of solid horror episodes in Strange New Worlds.
Oh, true. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In which one? In Strange New Worlds or
Strange New Worlds. Picard, I guess you
Okay.
could say has.
There's a little bit of horror element in Picard as
Yeah,
well.
but yeah, Strange New Worlds is the one that really gets that right.
Although I feel like in Picard as well, season 3, I think you may appreciate a performance of a known actress, not to Star Trek, but I mean
All
just known in general.
all right, everybody relax.
Yeah, exactly.
It's already too much for me. I mean, like, you've got
There you go.
it's like Doctor Who with Big Finish. I'm not even going to dip my toe in that anymore because it's just so
Aw.
overwhelming.
Oh,
I know, relax.
just wait. We'll hit you up for MHC. We'll start doing the Big Finish series.
Oh my god, that's even gonna be tough for me.
But take us home, Eric. Take us. Oh, just wait. I've got it planned. But take us home.
All right. So yeah. Woo! Stay tuned next time. We still have another old podcasting friend in the wings, hoping to join sometime soon for Strange New Worlds. But until then, this is Eric.
This is Carl.
This is Caleb.
And this is Sean.
And until next time,
To the stars through hardship.
Beware Romulans bearing gifts.
oh right, I guess that means you want to talk about Star Trek for the first time in the last 10 years.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this. Yeah, I guess lead us in.
Oh boy, feel a bit nervous, a little bit of stage fright.
I don't know. I'm honored. My good, you podcast with all three of us all the time, Eric.
I know, but this is like a momentous occasion, and of course,
Your worlds are colliding.
I was gonna drink because I haven't drunk while podcasting in well over a year, and I was gonna drink tonight, but then I got to do stuff after, so I'm not drinking.
Oh.
But anyway,
So it's like whenever we start a prognig, suddenly the nervousness kicks in for some reason. Even though you're fine with any other podcast, for whatever reason, that one.
does that happen on Prognig?
Yeah, I noticed every time my editing. Yeah.
You do it best picture too. I'm like, okay, let's record. Come on. And you're like, and you sound like a bureaucrat shuffling papers. Okay, I hear your chair creaking. Let me get
Fake
my
notes ready and
Oh shit! You just remind me. Thank you. I don't have my fake notes up. Let me check my blood sugar.
P.S. That TV movie with LeVar Burton, The Midnight Hour. Check it out on YouTube. That's a quality little TV movie.
I remember that one.
I apologize, everyone. I shouldn't have mentioned the fake notes.
Now he's got to go. He's going into DOS to retrieve them. Apparently. You sound like Sandra Bullock in The Net. Oh, they're not here.
Oh, I was using the run feature on Windows yesterday, and it felt kind of funny trying to change a setting in there.
You're a hacker.
Oh, in the 90s, I was knocking on the door of being a real hacker, but all my knowledge is obsolete and half forgotten now.
Hacking the Whopper.
It hacked the world.
quote unquote hacked my computer science teacher's computer in high school.
There you go. Change the grades. Was Hackers your favorite movie back then? Were you in love with that lifestyle?
I actually never seen it. I was thinking about watching it this last weekend.
You probably
Oh,
should not. I don't think that's a good idea to watch it.
yeah, it's not worth it.
That I was considering that or Tank Girl,
Oh,
which I also have not seen.
not worth it.
A cult classic.
To some folks.